Flames roared like a beast unleashed, swallowing the outback in searing heat. 3 tiny joeys trembled alone, no sign of their mother. Then, from the smoke, a massive male kangaroo appeared, stepping into a role no one expected. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The air was thick with smoke, a heavy, acrid haze that choked the breath and cloaked the scorched earth in a ghostly gray. Ash drifted down like brittle snowflakes, settling on Emma's weathered jacket and tangling in her tangled hair. Every step she took through the cracked dirt was heavy with urgency, the sharp crackle of burning wood echoing around her like a sinister drumbeat. The wildfire had not been kind. It had consumed everything in its path, leaving charred skeletons of gum trees and blackened shrubs where life had once thrived. Yet, amid this brutal landscape, Emma's mind was fixed on one fragile hope: those joeys. She had known the wild was unpredictable, even cruel, but witnessing the vulnerability of these creatures stirred something deep within her. The 3 joeys huddled beneath a fallen branch, their wide, watery eyes reflecting a mix of terror and confusion. One was barely bigger than a fist, its fur singed at the edges. Another shivered violently, lips quivering as if the trauma threatened to break them apart. The third, slightly older, tried to appear brave, but failed to mask the desperate longing for the safety only their mother could provide. Emma knelt slowly, careful not to startle them, her voice a gentle murmur against the roaring backdrop of destruction. Why had the mother disappeared? The question twisted in her gut. Normally, kangaroos fiercely guard their young, guiding them to safety with relentless instinct. Emma's mind raced through the possibilities. Had the fire caught her off guard? Was she injured, trapped, or worse? The thought gnawed at Emma, but she pushed it aside. Panic was a luxury neither she nor these joeys could afford. Her training kicked in, every muscle and sense sharpened by years spent saving animals from death's edge. The tiny creatures trembled as she reached out, offering a trembling hand that carried the scent of reassurance and warmth. One joey hesitated, then tentatively inched forward, pressing its soft muzzle against her palm. Emma's chest tightened with a fierce, protective urge. This was no longer just a rescue mission. It was a fight for survival. She knew the outback's cruelty. The relentless sun, the predators lurking in the shadows, the merciless thirst that gnawed at any being caught without shelter or sustenance. Emma scanned the horizon. The fire had moved on, but the landscape was a labyrinth of hazards. Smoldering logs that could flare up again at any moment, jagged rocks hidden beneath ash. The eerie silence broken only by distant cries of displaced wildlife. Yet she was undeterred. The joeys needed more than safety from the flames. They needed a guide, a guardian, to replace the one they had lost. Her voice softened, laced with a fierce tenderness that contradicted the harsh environment. "I'm here now. You're not alone." She gathered the smallest joey into her jacket pocket, the warmth of its trembling body pressing against her heart. The other 2 pressed closer, seeking the same refuge, their trust fragile but unmistakable. Emma's hands were steady, her determination solidifying into a promise. She would lead them through this nightmare and back into the light. As the smoke curled upward in lazy spirals, Emma's thoughts flickered briefly to the mother kangaroo, the vanished protector. The wild had robbed her from these joeys, but Emma refused to let that loss define their fate. She was no stranger to grief. Years of this work had taught her how pain and hope could coexist in the same breath. Every rescue was a battle waged on the frontier of despair and compassion. With a careful glance back at the smoldering remnants of the bushland, Emma rose, her figure framed against the smoky sky like a beacon of resilience. The joeys clung to her side, small hearts pounding with fragile hope. The path ahead was uncertain and dangerous, but Emma's resolve blazed brighter than the fire that had torn their world apart. In that moment, amid devastation and fear, compassion ignited. a fierce, unyielding flame that refused to be extinguished. The story of survival had begun, and Emma was determined it would not end here. The jagged horizon wavered beneath the simmering haze, the air still heavy with smoke and the faint, bitter scent of burned eucalyptus. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she soothed the smallest joey nestled against her chest, but her senses sharpened when a new presence stirred at the edge of the scorched bush. Movement, a large silhouette shifting through the blackened remnants of foliage, caught her attention. She stiffened, heart pounding in a pulse that mirrored the crackling embers scattered by a fickle breeze. Then he emerged. Jack, a towering male kangaroo, broad-shouldered and muscular, his fur dusted with ash and singed at the edges but unbowed by the inferno. He moved with a deliberate grace that betrayed no hesitation, eyes calm and fixed on the trembling joeys. Emma's breath hitched. This was no ordinary encounter. Jack's steady approach defied every expectation drilled into her by years of fieldwork. Kangaroos, especially dominant males, were wary, territorial, often aggressive toward unfamiliar young. Yet Jack lowered his massive head, nuzzling each joey with a gentleness that spoke volumes. The air between them pulsed with an unspoken bond, a quiet reverence that unsettled and fascinated Emma in equal measure. Questions clawed at her mind, relentless and urgent. Why was Jack here? What ancient instinct or profound loss drove him to step into this unlikely role? Emma's rational training wrestled with the undeniable truth unfolding before her. This was not mere survival, not simple instinct. It was something deeper, an act of devotion and courage that defied the harsh rules of the outback. With cautious trust, Emma rose and followed as Jack led the fragile family across the scarred landscape. Every step felt charged with tension, the ground beneath them a patchwork of blackened earth and brittle, treacherous debris. The smoke hadn't fully cleared, and distant flickers of flame still licked the horizon, a menacing reminder of the fire's lingering threat. Emma's eyes darted constantly, alert for predators, dingoes that might exploit the chaos, birds of prey circling high with hungry intent. Yet Jack moved with an uncanny certainty, his powerful legs propelling the joeys through narrow ravines and across dry creek beds that cracked underfoot. Emma matched his pace, awe mounting with each precarious crossing. The terrain grew steeper, the risks multiplying, but Jack's focus never wavered. His protective presence enveloped the joeys, an unyielding shield against a world that had suddenly turned savage. Emma's heart hammered not just from the physical exertion, but from a growing sense of wonder. Here was a male kangaroo who, against all odds, was fulfilling a role nature rarely bestowed upon him: protector, nurturer, guide. Hours passed in a tense, fragile rhythm. Emma's mind spun with theories, but none could explain the silent devotion Jack displayed. She noted the small signs, how he paused to let the joeys rest, how he sniffed the air, alert to every scent and sound, yet the question persisted, unyielding. Why? The answer came with an almost cruel clarity when Emma spotted the faint scar along Jack's shoulder, an old wound, raw and recent, evidence of a desperate struggle. Her breath caught as realization dawned. Jack was the father of one of these joeys. The wildfire hadn't merely scattered them, it had torn their family apart. Driven by primal instinct and a fierce, unwavering love, Jack had risked everything: fire, predators, exhaustion, to reunite what had been lost. This revelation shattered Emma's assumptions about kangaroo behavior. She had witnessed countless rescues, studied wildlife deeply, yet nothing prepared her for this rare glimpse into the complex bonds that could transcend instinctual roles. A male kangaroo stepping into the place of the mother, risking his own life for the vulnerable offspring. This was not just survival. It was a testament to the profound capacity for love and sacrifice that thrums silently beneath the surface of the wild. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the burnt landscape, Emma felt the weight of the moment settle into her bones. The fire had taken much, but it could not burn away the fierce, enduring spark of family. Jack's presence, his extraordinary courage, infused the air with a fragile hope, a promise that life, even in its most vulnerable form, could find a way to endure. Emma's gaze lingered on the protective male, the joeys clinging close, and she knew their journey was far from over. But whatever challenges lay ahead, the truth of Jack's devotion had rewritten everything she thought she knew about survival in the wild. The creek appeared like a mirage through the heavy haze, a narrow ribbon of shimmering water threading its way quietly beneath thick canopies of dense emerald foliage. Here, the wild fury of the outback paused, the air cooler and moist with the sweet scent of damp earth and green leaves untouched by the fire's voracious appetite. Jack's powerful form moved cautiously into this oasis, ears flicking attentively as the distant roar of the wildfire became a muted growl swallowed by the thick underbrush. Emma's breath caught with a mix of disbelief and profound relief. After hours of desperate navigation through a landscape stripped bare and charred, they had found sanctuary. The joeys, trembling moments before, now edged toward the water's edge, their tiny paws sinking softly into the cool mud. One lapped hesitantly at the creek, the ripples reflecting the muted gold of a fading sun. Emma crouched low beside them, the tension in her limbs loosening for the first time since the fire's sudden outbreak. Her eyes never left Jack, who stood sentinel on the creek's bank, majestic, vigilant, a stoic guardian embodying a fierce, silent promise. His fur, dusty and singed, glistened faintly in the late light, muscles coiled beneath taut skin, ready to face whatever threats the wild might still hurl their way. Emma's pulse slowed, her chest rising and falling in a rhythm tempered by awe rather than fear. This moment was more than a rescue. It was a triumph born of primal love and unyielding courage. The journey to this hidden creek had been brutal, scorched landscapes littered with the remnants of trees stripped bare by fire, treacherous terrain riddled with fallen branches and unstable earth, all under a sky still heavy with ash and smoke. Each step had carried the weight of life or death, yet Jack's determination never faltered. Here, in this quiet sanctuary, that determination crystallized into something far greater, a testament to the raw power of parental devotion in the face of annihilation. Emma's gaze swept over the joeys, now slowly regaining their strength, their small bodies visibly relaxing as the creek's coolness seeped into their parched limbs. They nuzzled into one another for comfort, their wide eyes reflecting a fragile flicker of hope. It was a stark contrast to the chaos left behind, smoldering ruins, displaced wildlife, the echo of destruction still ringing in the distance. And yet here, shielded by nature's embrace, life persisted. She felt a shudder of emotion ripple through her, a mingling of exhaustion, sorrow, and profound gratitude. The fire had been merciless, indiscriminate in its destruction, but it had also revealed a deeper truth hidden beneath the harsh exterior of the outback. The wild was brutal, yes, but within it lay stories of compassion that defied logic, stories written in silent acts of bravery and sacrifice. Jack's vigilant stance by the creek was a living emblem of this truth, an unspoken vow that no matter the odds, love could carve out refuge even in the bleakest wastelands. Emma's mind replayed every moment of the journey, the fear, the uncertainty, the flickering despair, and then the steady resolve that had propelled them forward. It was a tapestry of raw, unfiltered emotion woven into a narrative of survival that transcended the physical struggle. This was not merely a tale of animals escaping fire. It was a story that spoke to the enduring resilience of the wild spirit, the sacred bonds that tether life even in the face of extinction. Her eyes met Jack's steady gaze, and in that silent exchange, she saw the primal depth of his sacrifice, a male kangaroo who had defied the odds, who had stepped into a role nature rarely grants, to protect the vulnerable against an overwhelming force. It was a reminder that sometimes heroism comes not with grandeur or spectacle, but in quiet moments of steadfast devotion. A whispered defiance against the chaos that sought to consume everything. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that stretched like protective arms across the creek's gentle currents. Smoke drifted lazily on the wind, but the flames had retreated, diminished by distance and exhaustion. The wild had tested them fiercely, but here, in this fragile cradle of life, Emma felt an unshakable sense of peace settle over the group. The journey was far from over, but for now there was relief, hard-won, deep and true. In this rare, sacred moment, the story of Jack and his Joeys became more than survival. It became a symbol of hope, a lesson etched into the landscape of the outback, whispering that courage and compassion are often found in the most unexpected places, in the most unlikely heroes. And Emma knew with a quiet certainty that this story, raw and honest, would resonate far beyond the scorched earth, inspiring all who heard it to believe in the enduring power of love amidst devastation.